Well, good evening, Demonlanders, and welcome to the Demonland podcast. My name is Andy, and joining me tonight, as he always does, Grapeviney. Good evening, how are you going?
I'm all right, Andy, thank you.
You haven't slashed your wrist just yet?
No, Demonland's kept me in check all week, so
Okay.
I'm across the situation, I think.
Do you have your microwave handy for the coming weeks?
Yep, ready to go.
Ready to go.
Yep, ready to I've hit the panic button already. We're about to go nuclear, so
All right.
Stand by.
We'll stand by. Joining us for his second appearance on the Demonland podcast, we have a Twitter pundit, author of The Great Depression, Supermercado. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening, gents. And may I say, no matter how miserable you are, a good airing of Come On Demons always lifts the spirits, thinking of Ricky Jackson climbing out of a locker and Andy Lovell chopping down a goalpost with an axe. So thank you for lifting my spirits. Yeah,
I have it on repeat on my iPod, circa 2001. Gentlemen, as I just was saying to Grapeviney, is it panic stations yet? Supermercado, you're very used to this type of feeling. You've written about it. Is it panic stations yet?
Perhaps it is because I have seen so much horror and taken so much horror into my soul in the last few years that I'm actually remaining relatively calm about this. I think it's been a bit over the top this week. I just did my usual AFL 360, come in halfway through, find the bits about Melbourne, then stop watching. And they had about the third different package this week of miserable fans and soft music and backgrounds of people explaining what went on. I think it's all a bit over the top, to be honest. Like, I think we can all see on Sunday that there was a lot of deficiencies, there was a lot of stuff that went wrong, but my God, it's like, you know, it's all it lacks from the time that Essendon whopped us by 148 points was, you know, a coach sacking, and a few people are trying to get that up as well. They're trying to get Goodwin out the door quicker than we got Neil'd out the door. So I think the response this week is obviously the most important thing, but at the same time, following this week, we've got a run of Essendon, then St Kilda, Gold Coast and Carlton. So if you're planning to go Troppo, I wouldn't waste all your energy now, because you could have an excellent opportunity to do it in about a month.
I'll tell you what, if in a month things are the same as they've been now, I think we'll have to shut Demonland down permanently because I don't think the server will be able to handle the abuse, but we're not quite there yet, and perhaps we can sort of maybe dissect what went wrong this week, because during the first quarter, the first half of the first quarter, I was already talking about, well, to myself because I was sitting by myself, but I was talking about the Richmond game and it's going to be amazing and we're flying, and by midway through the second quarter, that feeling had dissipated.
Don't trust Melbourne.
It's clear what's happened. The rebuild is dead. The Ruse Goodwin experiment is a failure. We know Jesse and Angus are off to WA. And PJ, who came out today and said that we trashed the brand, he has to go because the fish rots at the head. And the time for action is now, I think.
Can we get Alan Stockdale back to have another crack? When his number one campaign promise was that he was going to have sausage sizzles for the kids, which was probably not up there with the greatest election manifestos ever.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Well, the game...
But you're right, Andy. They played like millionaires for 15, 20 minutes, and then it just fell apart in every facet of the game, didn't it? I mean, I think we were 4-2 at one stage. So from that point on, we kicked, we kicked another 2-10 or 2-11 for the game.
And I don't think we can even blame the weather, because we were playing like it was a wet weather game. We were fumbling. We were missing handballs. Balls were going through the legs. It was a disaster. But, I mean, the Hawks initially were also fumbling, but they seemed to be a lot more composed with ball in hand and able to take marks and use the wet weather to their advantage where we certainly didn't. So, I don't know. We can't blame the weather. I mean, you have to play. Your opposition's also got the same handicap. So where do we start?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we would have done particularly all that much better in the dry the way we were going, but I think we might have played like it was wet, but we were set up like it was dry. So that was the problem. I don't profess to be a tactical expert in the slightest, but it sort of looked like we were just coming out and just doing exactly what we would have done any other day, and it was just clearly not working by half time, and we just kind of merrily went to our death like lemmings without seemingly doing much to try and get back the momentum.
Well, perhaps we'll talk about who was good. There weren't many. When I put the thread up on Demonland to get the votes, I think people were struggling to find 6 people to fit in the 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Clayton Oliver was Clayton Oliver. Jesse had he had a great first quarter. And then, Jonesy did a great job on, curtailing Tom Mitchell. But I was going to say Tom McDonald for a sec, but Tom Mitchell. I don't know. After that, it's sort of
Oscar McDonald had a really good game.
Yeah.
I know Ruffy ended up with a few or a couple, but
we had laid down.
Omac continues to be the sole beacon of light in the backline.
So last year, Oscar was the whipping boy, sort of on Demonland and on the internet, but he hasn't really lowered his colours this year. He's improving. He's getting better every week. I think maybe Melbourne supporters have found a new whipping boy in Jake Lever, and Jake's sort of got a lot of press this week. Your thoughts, gentlemen?
I think we're going to have him for many years to come, so he's certainly got time to get it right. So let's not all get miserable about him. And, apparently there was some hot rumours about his dad getting into some verbals with the crowd the other day. It's like, it's a bit early for that. I just think that he just looks really uncomfortable the way we're playing. And it's almost like we bought him just as a status symbol, and now we've got to find a way to use him. And Adelaide had the way to use him. That worked well. We just seem to be plonking him down there and going, right, go and do some of your intercept marking, and then it's just not happening.
Well, he did his stats. He had, I think, 13 intercept possessions. That's certainly his best. I think he's averaging for the year 7, so that's well down. But I don't think anything was going right in our backline, and we certainly didn't play. That there's been a thread on Demonland, their backline setup and structure, and it's not working. Can either of you, Grapeviney, what can you our backline? What's happening? What can we do to turn it around?
Well, some would have you believe that it's the line coach. I think Jade was the backline coach, wasn't he? And he's now at Casey. So I think
is that
Troy
a promotion
Chaplin's
or a sideways move or a demotion. I haven't been able to work that out yet.
Yeah,
I think they were talking it up. They were talking it up as a promotion, as a preparation for his own coaching career. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it seemed like a demotion or a sideways, but I don't know.
The bottom line is that the introduction of Lever has thrown whatever system was in place last year out of whack, and we haven't been able to resolve it yet. Frost was brought back in on the weekend, and it was hoped that would help the situation. I guess if Jake's intercept possessions and marks went up, then that was perhaps partly achieved on the weekend. He certainly did quite a bit of intercepting, but I think people's frustration was with the ground balls, the running over of the footy a couple of times, and again some wayward possessions. So he's certainly out of form at the minute and struggling to find his feet, and the whole back line has sort of been thrown out of kilter as a result, which is a bit hard to... I don't know. I mean, they've had a whole summer to work on it. Surely they would have tried different scenarios and, to counter for the different forward lines that we meet this year. So it's a bit perplexing that it seems to have the football department so perplexed still.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but if you take, say, from last week, you take Lever out and put Hunt back in, that's pretty much the back line we had last year after Tom McDonald went forward, which I know we weren't exactly spectacular in the later part of last year, but system-wise, they looked a lot better. And, we conceded a few goals that we shouldn't have, probably one or two that kept us out of the finals. But it didn't seem like it seemed like there was been times here, and even times the last couple of weeks, where it's like the players the ball comes in and everyone is so spread out. It's like they need to ring long distance to call each other. It's ridiculous. It just seems that the structure, and again, I don't profess to be a tactician, but the structure just seems there's something wrong with it. And I'd be hesitant to lay it on Jake Lever as a player, but I feel that his presence contributes to it. And I think, they work that out. He becomes a good player. I just think that it almost lacks a general in that back line. Like Tom McDonald, for all the people who were really always uncomfortable about him, few clangers here and there, you could always rely on him to fly in, grab an overhead mark, crash people out of the way. I would say the price paid of a couple of high-profile flub kicks every week was way less than what he actually added to that back line. Now, it's a shame that we can't now have one of him forward and one of him back, and one Jesse Hogan at full forward and one Jesse Hogan at centre-half forward.
And 5 Petrackers.
Correct, one in each position, and a Max Gawn forward as well.
Yeah.
There's a few, but maybe about 40 metres out, so he set shot kicking's better off from that distance. But I just think that the backline really lacks that big control player. Like Oscar has been excellent. I really liked Oscar this year, but he's a one-on-one player. We need. I would almost put Tom McDonald into that backline now if I could, if he was available. I loved him forward last year. I loved him forward in the preseason, and I think him and Hogan would be a magnificent combo. But I think he would, at the moment, have more benefit in the back line than the forward line. Not that our forward line's doing much either. And
just on Lever, just like getting one player in your team isn't going to change your fortunes around. You can't blame that one person for all the ills of the team. And I just thought we were bombing it in, or they were bombing it into the forward line, and we would have 3 guys flying for the mark and no one down. And there was no one down either forward or back of the pack, and that cost us a couple of times. And it just that can't go on.
We've been saying that for a long time, though. That problem existed pre-Lever. But then not a whole lot is going right back there at the moment. And just think how much drive Hibberd gave us off half back last year, really setting up forward thrusts, and we're just missing that at the moment. So, and Richmond's got their unusual forward line this week, so it'll be interesting to see how how Goodwin selects the side and how they gel together on Tuesday night.
I think getting Hibberd and Hunt going is absolutely crucial, one if not two of them, because that's where you get the quick forward entries that you end up with Jeff Garlett running out the back and running into an open goal. That this week there was not even a hint of that in the last 3 quarters, so we ended up just bombing it in there, and that just was garbage. Like, it just didn't work in the slightest.
We talked a bit about the structure of the backline, but there was an article today on AFL.com.au about our setup at the ball-ups, and something that the Ds have been doing. We've been playing two men sort of, men coming off the half back line straight into the centre with leaving two opposition players on the wing, and that worked really well for us in the first quarter, and that was worked out quite quickly, and it sort of led to our demise. Did either of you guys see that, the footage of that? They had some vision of that on AFL.com.
Yeah, I saw that, and I thought, that was kind of a good for someone like me to actually dumb it down to what was going on and explain it. I think really it was just a case of an out coaching from a guy who's done everything versus a guy who's done nothing. You look back at Clarkson. I had a look at his record up to the same time that Goodwin's coaching now, and sure, he probably took over a team that was in a worse position, but his first three games against Sydney, with Paul Roos at his peak, he lost each one of them by 10 goals. So I think there was a lot of errors that were made today, and there's been a lot, the rest of the year, we were a kick away from being 3-0 before this, but at the same time, I think we'd all admit that there's been some very weird signs going on. I think that's, as long as that's learnt from, and I know we've all had so many learnings that we should be Oxford scholars by now. But it's whether we learn from that going into this week, and we might not win this week because we're playing a bloody good team, but it's what we learn from that going into, again, that run of Essendon could go either way. St Kilda we should beat, Carlton we should beat, Gold Coast we should beat. So that's where the really important stuff we're going to learn if they've actually worked this out.
Well, I just hope that other teams aren't working us out. It seems we take the coaching staff takes a long time to react. And that's seen where we have run-ons of goals kicked against us, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. I fear that we're I'm not going to say one-dimensional team, but it seems we've got this plan A that can work really well. It's adapting when it's not working, and we've seen in a few games this year that when we've dropped off, we've been able to come back into the game. I'm just fearing that we're going to be worked out, and if we don't react quick enough, it's going to be detrimental to us.
And that's the problem. You go into the hole of a few goals down. Yeah, sure, occasionally you come back, but you leave yourself such a massive hole. It's like the Geelong game. We were in such a hole, or the Collingwood game end of last year, that you get to the point where you can dominate for a massive period of the game, and then they fluke one goal and you're finished. There's a stat I've been tracking, which is a completely invented stat that Champion Data don't do, that games where we've gone at least 4 goals down and then got back to within a goal at some point. And we've done that 14 times. I've tracked it since the start of 2014. The first time was round 11, 2014, and since then it's happened 14 times for 5 wins and 9 losses. Funny thing is, Goodwin is actually 4-3 of that. So he's won. So under Roos, it was 1 win, 6 losses, and Goodwin's 4 win, 3 losses. And I don't know if that means anything, but the fact is that going back into the last couple of years of the Roos era, we've had this problem. And even we've had it on a larger scale. We'll all remember that Bulldogs game where I think we broke the record for the biggest loss for a team ever that's held an opposition goalless in a quarter. We sort of won one quarter by 30 points and lost every other quarter by about 40 points. There have been, ever since we started kicking goals again, those big runs on. So I don't think that's a Goodwin thing. It's possibly a Goodwin influence thing because he was obviously there when this started. But it has been happening for a long time, and we just don't seem to be able to get on top of it.
Yeah, we've discussed this on the podcast before, and one of my theories for the fade-outs actually has been that because we've done the comeback so often, and as you say, Goodwin's got a 4-3 record, the players have this level of self-confidence that even if they do fall in a hole, that they can make up the lost ground. So I wonder whether that is tricking them into a false sense of security, and they get, either up and take the foot off the pedal, or if scores are level, concede a few, because they believe that they can kick their way back into it.
Or the St Kilda pre-season game, the Brisbane game, and the North this week, where they get so far ahead and then do the exact reverse and allow the other team to come back. Like, well, can we just have a normal experience?
No.
And judge the team. I know it's very difficult if you're a Melbourne fan,
but look,
we could just get a baseline as we experience to judge things.
To be fair, as we said before, Clarkson worked out what was going on and adjusted accordingly. And somebody posted a stat before that apparently they said this during the telecast, that Hawthorn is the number one side in terms of second quarter performance, and that's largely down to the fact that Clarkson spends the first quarter working out what's being thrown at him, then readjusts, and the Hawks come out after quarter time and are ready to rock and roll.
And I don't think that's you're gonna, the minority of people who sort of want to sack everyone and go and get a new coach. Like, again, who are you going to get that's not going to go through the exact same education that the current coach is going through? You're not John Longmire, you're not Chris Scott walking into teams that are just winning premierships straight away, being handed premiership teams.
The main name being thrown up this week was Alistair Clarkson. So
yeah, well, we've tried that before. We offered him, didn't we? Offer him before Neil, we offered him a fortune. He told us to get stuff, and went off to merrily win flags galore, which obviously proved that he's a very smart man.
Yep.
It is. It is worrying. There have been 21 times in 26 games that we've conceded 4+ goals on a run. It's got to stop. It really does. It's Melbourne cannot be trusted at the moment, and that's the reason why.
And I'd be interested to see that stat if they'd cracked it open a bit longer for how long it took for those 4 goals. Because I think often you'll find that the 4 goals will come very quickly.
Yep.
In this case, this game, it was probably a little bit more stretched out. But often, like the North game, just whack, 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 whack. We were 4 goals down. Brisbane game, we all know we conceded about 7 goals in half an hour there. It's that. It's not the stretch out of us not kicking the goals, apart from this weekend, but it's the brutality of that 10-minute period where we just get blown off the park. And we do obviously come back a few times. Yeah, last year, in the space of about 5 weeks, we were 4 goals down and either came back to win or came back to get very close. Against Adelaide, we won. Gold Coast, we won. And Hawthorn and North Melbourne, we lost.
Yep.
So it's definitely not a new phenomenon this year. The first half of last year, the same thing happened. But like I said, when you get that far in the hole, you just leave yourself so vulnerable to things, just small things tripping you up, that you're right. It really has to be looked at.
Once you're that far down, you basically need absolutely everything to go perfectly your way to pull off the comeback. And it can be a bad umpiring decision or one kick that's missed, and that blows the whole thing up.
Yeah, and you got to convert as well. You got to convert when you get your opportunities, which obviously that tripped us up again on the weekend. I think we probably would have got done anyway, but those opportunities that were missed were just so crucial because we weren't making good opportunities after the first quarter.
Yeah, the second quarter particularly, I think we kicked 5 points, and many of them were very gettable. You slot through a few of those and things might have been a bit different. By the end, obviously, we'd lay down and let them get that run on at the end. But, yeah, the damage had been done by that inaccuracy. Now, Demonland poster Garbo posted an interesting bit of statistics. He said, might have been said already, but of the 21 games where we conceded 4 or more goals in a row since round 27, well, it can't be since then, we have won 9 and lost 12. Of the 5 games we didn't concede 4 or more, we won all 5. Richmond, for comparison, conceded 4 or more goals 8 times in the same 26 home and away games, winning 1 and losing 7. So, I mean, that sort of proves that we, when we have teams have that run on, we have the ability to come back and win some of those games. But I just don't want that to happen. We can't let that happen anymore.
And it depends where they get the run on as well. They get the run on in the first quarter, i.e. the North game. That's not fine, but it's recoverable.
Yeah.
It's when they get the run on in the third quarter or the fourth quarter, and then we're really having to dig out of a hole, that's when it becomes a fatal issue. It's bad enough at the start of a game, and you just tend to wonder what is not just the coaching box, but the on-field leadership as well, to be able to calm things down and get things back, slow it down for a while, sit on the ball for a few minutes, and just take the sting out of the other team.
We talk about on-field leadership. Who do you consider to be on-field leaders? We've got Jonesy, who was doing his own job on the field, and I wonder if he was, sort of concentrating on that. Jordan Lewis, playing with a broken hand, but he's being down on form, and I think he's probably lucky that he's got that hand injury, because he'd probably be looking at a stint in the twos, I dare say. Where else is our leadership coming from, or should it be coming from?
Well, and I think that's an absolutely excellent question. Like, without Viney, I see Lyndon Dunn still going around at Collingwood. I wouldn't mind him in that back line at the moment, to be honest. I think he could probably marshal a few people. It's a good question. I just don't get Lewis. Apparently, broken hand for the last 3 quarters, but he seems to have still played, the rest, the third quarter, the last quarter. It would have been a great time to sort of pack him up. He played 84% of the game, whereas Salem played 76% of the game.
Wow.
There's Brayshaw played 71% of the game, and I know Brayshaw probably hasn't played that many games recently, and he had a bit of interruption in the pre-season. But still, to me, the last quarter, it could have been time to just pack Lewis away with his hand and just concentrate on other players.
Can only assume that they didn't think it was as bad as it is, and perhaps being a cold and wet day, maybe he just didn't feel it. Didn't feel it to be as bad as it turned out to be in the end. Yeah,
I've broken a finger or dislocated a finger, and I didn't even know it on a wet, cold day. So I can see how that can happen.
Maybe just could have just tried someone else, just for the sake of the fact that we know we're going to need to try someone else at some point down there. He's not going to be there forever. So it's I'm not sure. I'm not really sure him and Vince in the same team. I just can't. I can make a case for one of them. I just can't make a case to having both of them at the same time.
Yeah, I was really upset with Vince, that effort on the goal line, that sort of toe poke thing that cost us a goal. That's not showing leadership. That's not doing, that was terrible.
Didn't that remind you of that goal that Bontempelli kicked at Etihad that day a few years ago, where we couldn't kill the ball on the line, and he did that miracle snap from the boundary line over his shoulder.
I think that might have been the original comeback game. That might have been round 11, 2014. I'm gonna look that up now, because I think that was one of the games where we came back from a mile in the hole and almost won. But like you said, because everything, because you are so vulnerable at that point when you have to come back, that one goal knocked us out.
Yep.
Yeah, while you're looking that up, I might remind our listeners that if you do want to give us a call and give us your take on the game or anything we're talking about tonight or we'll talk about, you can call us two ways, 0390163666. That's 0390163666. Or you can get on Skype and look up Demonland31, all one word, and give us a call. We'll take your calls. We'll be happy to, and you can share in our misery. We can all maybe heal together.
But that goal just wasn't just Vince, by the way.
Yes.
Lever overran it, and Jeddah mucked it up as well. So They almost all had a part to play in that, and it really was a bloody comedy of errors, really.
I thought it was funny on the TV how they were mocking us for, no one knows, they just should rush it. They all know the rules. And it's like, as if the rules are the same from one week to the other. Like, you can understand why players might be scared to rush it through because the interpretation changes every 5 minutes.
They were trying to rush it, though. They just made an absolute meal of it.
I thought Bernie was sort of trying like a clever sort of back heel
across goal. Right,
through the goal. But yeah, it was so far out that it made absolutely no sense.
Now, you talked about interpretations of the rules, and there was a thing that happened on the weekend, and Hawthorn are very good at this, and they do it a lot, and I think Geelong did it to us in the first round. It's the shepherding the man on the mark. What do you guys think about that? Should that type of thing be outlawed? Do you think we didn't do enough to sort of curtail that? How do you curtail that? Do you allow it to happen so that they've got one less man at the where the ball's going? Supermercado, what do you think of that? The shepherding.
I don't know if it's going to stop the player where the ball's going because I guess the player who's doing the shepherding is always going to be someone who's in the vicinity anyway, and someone who's going to stay in the vicinity. Look, I mean, I would not allow it if I was on the AFL's super panel, which I'm very disappointed I didn't get a call up for. But if it is legal, then we should be giving it a bash. We never seem to be the innovators of these things. We always seem to jump on them at the end of the road. So you'll probably get banned 5 minutes after we do start doing it. But yeah, if you've got someone like a Garland or someone like that, just who's not going to go up the field and get in the next play anyway, or the next marking contest, and they can impact the defender clearing the ball, then absolutely. Like, the forward pressure is, it's been really disappointing. I think they have their odd moment of glory. But the forward pressure has just been really down. So anything we can do to add to that and put the heat on them getting the ball out of defence, go for it.
Yeah, I actually think the rule has to be. I think it should be changed. I think someone put a graphic up on Demonland how you have to be behind. There's a 5 metre arc behind the player with the ball. There's the 10 metres or whatever between the guy with the ball and man on the mark. But there should be an exclusion zone around the player on the mark, another 5 metre arc behind them, and I think maybe eventually that'll be changed, but at the moment we've got to live with it. And that certainly didn't lose us the game, but
no, we wouldn't have found anyone to kick it to anyway.
No.
Maybe that'd also stop those chip kicks that only go 7 metres but are still paid as marks from happening too, because anyway. I agree.
So we talked about being, an easy team to score against, but I thought it was quite interesting that the first person to sort of come out with that after the game was Paul Roos. Roosy was the one saying that Melbourne is the easiest team to score against, and it must really hurt him, you would think. He wouldn't like to see that, but he's not there anymore to do anything about it.
My favourite part was when Hawthorn had eight players in defence and still managed to fling the ball from one end to the other at 1,000,000 miles an hour and find our backline in total disarray. It was, it was just a dud day. Like, again, we know this was a dud day. If they come out and stink the joint up on Tuesday night, then let's all punch on. But for now, I think we've got to give them at least some ability to bring this back.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah. Well, there was a hot thread on Demonland this week. There was a lot of people questioning whether Goodwin is the man for the job. Still way too early to be getting the knives out. And I guess the next month will be very crucial in sort of further exploring that question. But yeah, I think it's still too early. We have to see how the team and how the coaches respond this week, and it'll be interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, just to go back on a point that George on the outer made in the chat room before, The problem is not only the back line, but the ease with which the ball was coming in and the unwillingness of the mids to run back and provide support. And I think that was shown up in some of the footage that they showed on the couch on Monday night. So, as Supermercado said, it was a stinker of a day. We ride it off and look to see what happens on Tuesday night.
Well, going back to some of the players, I thought in the first quarter, I thought Dean Kent was fantastic. He kicked 3 goals, and he was absolutely on fire. And then sort of barely saw him for the rest of the game. Tommy Bugg didn't have much influence up forward. Melksham's sort of been lost sort of all year.
I thought Bugg, he didn't have no influence. He had a negative influence on the game. I saw somebody posted that he had 3 or 4 score assists, but for every score assist he had, he killed off 2 or 3 forays forward, and he turned the ball over. He was a complete liability from the very first quarter when he missed that chip over the top that should have set Jeffy up for a goal. Missed it by a long way, and it just got worse from there. And I'll be very surprised if he retains his spot in the side, even accounting for the fact that he got a lot more ball than some of the others.
We definitely need another tall down there, and I think the North Melbourne game, take the conditions out of this one, I really think we could have done with another tall in this game. But it was kind of like you got Kent kick goals, you got Bugg kick goals. It kind of insulates them against a horses for courses switch. Like I would have taken Bugg out and put Pedersen in, for instance. But there's sort of this thing where, the guys just kick 4 goals.
Yeah, well, yeah, you could have.
Sure, 2 of them were frees, 1 of them fell into his arm. Fine performance, like nothing, not denigrating his performance, but you can't just look at the fact that he kicked 4 goals. And I would very much hope that highly paid football departments would look at that and say the net impact of the guy kicking 4 goals is great, but we need to move this guy to get a player in who's going to suit the opposition better. And in this case, allow Hogan to give a bit more freedom. And whether that's Pedersen, Wiedemann, Tim Smith, et cetera, doesn't matter. I think we just need another target down there.
I don't know. I agree. I think we need the other target down there, but I think it's been pretty stiff to take out a guy who's just kicked 4 goals. And I take what you said about how he got them, and it would have been very stiff to get. I think that was almost the problem that you had him and Kent. And you probably Melksham has been iffy this year, but he's probably adds more up the ground that Kent and Bugg aren't. Maybe Kent a bit more than Bugg. But yeah, there was sort of didn't have that option to move one of them out because they both did so well the game before. But I would agree that I think Bugg was very poor in this game. He can find scoring opportunities. He got 4 points, yeah.
Yeah, but you can't. We just can't have someone missing that often. And he was he used to convert really well in his first couple of seasons with us, and then it all just mid last season just went through the floor. And till last week, he's really missed so many more opportunities than he's converted. I just think he needs to go for a tall.
Do you think James Harms? We'll talk changes later, but I thought he didn't really impact the game at all. He'd be looking at a stint in the twos as well.
Yeah. I mean, I would probably keep him, but I understand where you're coming from on that as well. I think as the novelty of him playing in the ruck last week was kind of like, oh my God, this is amusing. But this week, when he was doing it for about 10 minutes in the second quarter, and he was very game. There was one where he kind of almost flew right over the top at a boundary throw-in, and Hogan's Heroes style. He tried to take the big specky over the guy in the boundary throw-in. So he was going for it, but what's the point? You can't replace a Gawn with anybody on our list is going to replace Gawn. but you got to have that competent backup ruckman. Last year when McDonald was doing it, he wasn't the best tap ruckman, but he was like straight there on the ground level fighting for the ball when it hit.
Yeah.
You just got to have that. And I don't think Harms, it's like Watts the last couple of years when he sort of got thrown in to do it. He wasn't bad, but it just didn't add anything. It was really, you were just desperately trying to break even. So, I mean, obviously the dream is to find a forward who can competently ruck as well. But I think for now, probably, Pedersen is the best option as close as we're going to get to someone who can really do both.
It'll be interesting to see whether they do go for Pedersen or perhaps Wiedemann or neither at selection this week.
Yeah, I think, Wiedemann's obviously not going to go in the ruck at any time. You wouldn't have thought. So, they've
been rucking him in the twos. So
yeah, right. Well, it shows how much I've been taking notice of the VFL so far this season.
Yeah, no, and I think with that exact point in mind that you're going to have a forward that can properly go into the ruck. So, I think
it's definitely an option. And you can't, as much as I like Pedersen, we have to also accept the fact that he's sort of 31 years old. So you can't rely on him. You've got to train someone else up eventually. So, it might be worth giving Wiedemann a go.
Well, if they've been playing Wiedemann in the ruck, in the twos, you would think the reason for that is because, with the eye of bringing him in at some point, possibly sooner rather than later, to do that, to be the backup ruckman. I'm not sure what the ruck stocks are out at Casey, but yeah.
Or the opposition. I think they've played a couple of pretty lowly teams until this week. This week they obviously got a good run for their money, but before that, it wasn't much of a trial. Knocking over Frankston and Coburg.
Yeah, you're right. So you said you didn't, Supermercado, you didn't see, you haven't been following the VFL this year. Grapevine, what's your understanding of who played well for Casey? I can see based on the we had.
I think Hunt was considered one of the best on ground. Kicked a goal and got a bit of the footy, so that's good news. And you'd expect he'll be back this week. As to who else performed, I think Pedersen had a really good second half after a quiet first half and kicked two very important goals, one of which was he ran the half the length of the field. So, they were certainly amongst it.
Yeah, so, I see Wiedemann only kicked one and Tim Smith one. So it'll be interesting to see if we bring in Pedersen or Wiedemann or even Smith. I think Smith played last year against Richmond and got injured early on. So,
but I've got a feeling Smith's only just come back from injury.
Yeah.
I think he's had an interrupted. Both Smiths perhaps haven't played a whole lot of footy yet this year, so I'd be surprised if they get a run, but you never know. Simon says on Thursday night it's always surprise bag of goodies.
We'll take a look at our injury list. Still pretty light on the injury list. Jordan Lewis obviously with the hand, they say 1 to 2 weeks, which means that's at least 4-week injury. Given the Melbourne scale of calculations. I see Neville Jetta is listed as an ankle test. Any news on that?
I think it's been reported that he'll be fine to play.
Yeah.
Well, he certainly came back in the last quarter for what that was worth. He would probably been happier not to, but he certainly played the game out last week.
Yep.
Well, I see Tom McDonald, they're listed as 2 to 3 weeks, so really that 2 to 3 weeks can't come quick enough. Do you think once...
Yeah, Dave Misson said in his report that he would do a bit of training on Saturday with the main group. So that's good news.
Tom McDonald, 2 to 3 weeks. He'll actually train with the group a little bit on Saturday morning. We actually expect Tom to potentially be available for the Essendon game. Is the Essendon game the one after the Richmond game?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's exciting, but might be the week after that.
Yeah. I mean, that's only a week and a half away, basically, because it's only a few days after the Richmond game. So
yeah, let's just calm down on people with foot-related injuries.
Yeah, did we not learn from last year? There is a guy called Jack Viney that might have a few things to say. He's Jack's 3 to 4 weeks away, and they reckon that Aaron Vandenberg might get a few games in before the bye. So he's listed as 8 to 10 weeks. So watch
good
this
luck to
space.
Vanders. He's had a horror run.
Yeah, it's a last roll of the dice.
Shouldn't laugh.
No. I like Vanders, but it's going to be a monumental effort for him to come back from the injuries and get back into the team. So watch this space. So he's
How's Pat McKenna going?
No, well, it's indefinite.
I'm not sure of the actual existence of Pat McKenna. Have we confirmed that he is a real person and not a?
Funnily enough, they were pictures of him on social media today because the club had one of its community days where it goes to schools and reads. They read to the kids and take them out for a bit of a kick. And Pat was there reading like a demon. I think the program is. So I actually took the time to look at him and confirm that he was a real person.
Not a cardboard cutout.
No cardboard cutout.
So accidentally in a training session before the start of last year, or was that his teeth? There was definitely some teeth-related shenanigans involving Pat McKenna. I think he might have accidentally taken someone else's teeth out.
I don't know.
So that player is well aware of the existence of Pat McKenna.
Well, I think if you're an indefinite injury, you're doomed to being in the Read Like a Demon program for the rest of the year. That's your contribution. So with Jordan Lewis out, you would expect Hunt to come back in for him. We've talked a little bit about changes. Anyone else you can see coming out of this team?
Plenty.
Yeah, well, there's plenty. What's actually...
Well, Tyson's ready to come back after being ill on the weekend, so he comes straight back in. And
who goes out?
Who goes out? He'll replace one of Harms, Melksham or Bug, I would have thought. And Hannon might come in too. So 2 of Bug, Melksham and Harms might go. Or it could be Pedersen or Wiedemann.
And do you think they'll persist with Fritsch? He didn't get a lot of possessions this week. I just love what he does when he does get the ball. I'm still waiting for that sort of breakout game where he snags quite a few goals because I think that'll come. Do you think they'll persist with him? Or with Hannon coming back in, maybe he might be the one to miss.
Yeah, possible.
You'll probably get a week out.
In
a few weeks' time, and maybe switch with Hannon. I'd probably go for Hunt, Pedersen in for Lewis and Bug. I'm not particularly keen on Tyson, not to write him off at all, but I don't feel that he's a crucial player. But wouldn't obviously be starting a picket line on Brunton Avenue if he is picked. But I think I just want to be reasonably calm on this as well. I'm not one of these like we've just got to drop 10 players. It's a big game. It's a not just big game for the crowd, but a big game for we need a performance that rights the ship. I think it's like I said earlier. I think it's been a bit over the top how the defeat's been treated, especially in the media. So I think we just need to be a bit safe in this game and make sure we don't do anything crazy. That's why I would have Pedersen in front of Wiedemann or Smith, just a more experienced hand. And then potentially, no matter what happens this week, start looking at the future weeks. Okay, we've got everyone off our back. We've got some clear space. Now, where do we start experimenting?
See, I'd always have Tyson ahead of Harms and Bug anyway, and probably Neil Bullen as well. So for me, it's him coming back into the team is sort of going back to a best 22, if you like, or what my best 22 would be. But I agree. I don't think. It's don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and I don't think people are suggesting on Demonland 6 and 7 changes. I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think it should happen.
No, that's just almost confirming and saying we are in a panic mode. Like at the moment, you would hope that the club itself and what's coming out of the club, there's a lot of it's a bit defensive because it has to be, considering what happened, but it doesn't exude crisis mode. It's not like we've sent all the players away to Sorrento for a bonding experience. That when you kind of go, oh my God, we're in big trouble here. But you get to Thursday and suddenly it's 7 players out. That's just raising the white flag.
Is it too late to go on a midweek training camp?
There's still time to nip down. If they're at Casey, they could just push on to Phillip Island or something.
So the weather forecast, it looks kind to us. So it doesn't look like there'll be rain. I can see it says 24 possible shower, but 0 to 1 millimetre rainfall. So that's good. We don't want rain. And I often am a bit jealous of the teams that play under the roof of Etihad, not because I like Etihad, but it sort of seems a bit unfair that you can have 2 games played on the weekend of the same day and one game not being affected by the weather at all. Granted, they have to play at a soulless stadium, but it's... do you see anything unfair about that, or that's just the way...
I mean, usually I'm a traditionalist on things, but to be honest, I'd put a roof on everything and just play everything under a roof.
Make it a level playing field.
Maybe that's for my own comfort. It's probably the one thing I like about Etihad is going there and shutting the roof, which I know is a very divisive topic amongst footy fans. It's like politics here. People are on one side or the other, but I'm definitely an indoor fan.
If you've got a roof if you've got a stadium with a roof, why not have it closed? That's the whole point of it.
Well, so you can enjoy the lovely shadows across the most of the ground, and players putting their hands up to shield their eyes all day.
Yeah. We certainly don't play well in the wet or the bad conditions, that's for sure.
Or if our record at Etihad is anything to go by, undercover.
Yeah. That's been rectified in recent years. We are
we're definitely on the
carpet specialists.
We've actually almost been better there than the MCG.
Than at the G, yeah. Yep.
Time to start a petition. Grapevine, you actually started a thread, I just was reading it pre-podcast, about the crowd and the missed opportunity because of our loss on the weekend.
This is a big deal to me because
so go ahead.
The thing that hurt the most during the years of the Great Depression was our irrelevancy. We didn't play in a single game that had any consequence whatsoever. And so now that we're back in the fold and we've got the Queen's birthday, we've got the ANZAC Eve, I just want it to be as big as it can possibly be. And by getting thumped on the weekend, we've taken some of the gloss off. Instead of having a week where it would have been billed as the biggest game of the year and all the media outlets would have been talking tactics and who's going to cover this player and who's going to go to that, instead it's all been about how pathetic we were against Hawthorn. So I think that'll rob us of about 10 to 15,000 people. I think we would have got 90 had we won well against the Hawks. The MCC are predicting 82,000, but I think it'll be closer to 75,000. And I reckon PJ would be fuming because that's $15,000 of additional income that we forego. And, just a chance to really go properly onto the centre stage rather than, fall our way and stumble our way onto it, which is what we're doing this week.
Yeah, we don't get many chances to play on the big stage, and last year we had one Friday night game, and we sort of blew that and looked pathetic. We were good last year against Richmond, but we ran out of legs and players towards the end, so we don't get many of these big opportunities. And you're right, I think the result last week is definitely going to cost us this week. So yeah, I can see what you're saying there.
And I think that's why it's important that we've have to bounce back this week for obvious reasons, but why we don't want to be too NQR by making massive changes and everything, because we need to put in a good performance here that, you don't want to go out and lose by 90 points, terrible game, and people start, the AFL starts looking at it going, oh, hold on a minute, we could, stick Collingwood versus Richmond and get 90,000 instead. We've got to, keep This has been a pretty good fixture so far. I don't think there's any games. I think we won one by about 5 goals. That probably wasn't won until the third, fourth quarter. It's been a run of good games. So we really, if we don't win, we'd have to put in a good performance for multiple reasons.
I agree, 100%.
Otherwise, Carlton will be given the Anzac Day game.
Yeah, they'll play the first game against Richmond, and they'll come back 5 weeks later and play a second game against them.
Or maybe Collingwood and Essendon will play both on ANZAC Eve and on ANZAC Day.
Just play one. They'll start on ANZAC Eve night and just play one as a tribute.
8 quarters.
Yeah. Well, is there? I think that's it. Anything else, fellas? Can you see anything else that's happened during the week that you want to bring up?
Well, you guys might have seen the article in the paper by a fine demonblog reader, I must say, questioning whether he should let his kids become Melbourne fans. I don't know if you saw that. It was in the Fairfax papers.
Was that James Massola?
Yes.
Yes, so he's a political reporter at The Age.
Encourage James to... Well, if he's a political reporter, he should know about the words of the UK Labor leader of the 50s, Hugh Gaitskell, who said, fight, fight, and fight again, because we should never give up. You let your kids... Either if your kids aren't going to be Melbourne fans, then steer them away from football entirely into something else. Don't let them follow any other club. This is your duty, listeners.
I thought it was compulsory to make your children suffer like you had to suffer.
Correct. Imagine the resilience that you get from being a Melbourne fan. Like, you might never see success, but at least you'll have a fine moral grounding.
I must say, when you have a decade like we've had, and you've documented it, it is very hard to get your kids to keep coming back to the football. Kids want to see wins. They want to see good football, and it's very hard to get kids to go when you're playing mediocre football. I was talking
when the goalposts are flashing and there are super duper goals to be had.
You just don't let them go for another team. That's the thing. If you can just sort of put them on ice for a few years and get them back when the time is right. But you don't want to be that North game. I walked in, there was a kid who must have been 5 years old with a Gold Coast Suns hat on. And I was like, it made me physically ill to think about it, which was odd because I thought he must have been there for the Little League. Then they didn't even have Little League that day. They had some Milo obstacle course where people were rolling back and forth on a giant inflatable footy. So God knows what the kid was actually doing there. But it's like, how can you let your child be a Gold Coast Suns fan? Just steer them away from footy, steer them into something that's probably healthier for them and all that. And then in a few years' time, when the bandwagon's rolling, just drag them back in.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that bandwagon. I've been waiting all my life.
Yeah, I mean, they might not be kids anymore by the time the bandwagon actually happens, but at least they won't, lob up one day and decide that they're a Geelong fan or a Hawthorn fan or something like that.
Yeah, that's got to be my biggest fear as a parent. We'll be wearing a new Anzac Day Guernsey. Did either of you guys see that? And what are your thoughts on it? It's
not a huge fan, to be honest.
I heard people saying they're not a huge fan, but is it that different from the last year's one?
No, but I think I know someone suggested it in the thread. If they just had the rising sun placed at the point of the V, where the current image is of the soldier carrying a mate, I think go simple and leave it at that. I think it gets a bit gaudy when you start bringing in other images, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I think the general concept, like it's done for I hope, the right reasons, not to just pocket some cash on jumper sales. But I think in a position like us where we're actually playing in a game where they really do the solemn ceremony and, that there's that real ANZAC tribute, that it just gets a bit vulgar when we start plugging these jumpers and we've got this jumper and, like I said, I know it's done for the right reason, but I just think it gets a bit over the top sometimes.
So that's supposed to be a soldier carrying another soldier. I thought it was Gary Ablett carrying the Gold Coast Suns team.
It's ironic that Nathan Jones would be wearing something that features someone carrying someone else, because he's carried about 250 people in the last 10 years.
Yes, definitely. Well, I think that I think they are selling that jumper on the on the Demon Shop website. So yeah.
You'd think that surely a cut is going to the RSL or Legacy or something like that.
Yeah, the Anzac Day appeal or something. Anything else, fellas?
Yes. I'm not depressed in advance about next week. I see we could win. I don't think we will, but I think we will put in a performance that will hopefully set us up for the next important month after that.
Great, Viney.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Let's see the boys respond again on Tuesday night and take it from there. Had my faith rocked a little bit on the weekend, but ready to jump back on if they put in a good show on Tuesday night.
And I guess it depends where you thought we were going to be this year to start with. I probably thought that we were nothing more than a fringe finals team this year, and that next year would be the great leap forward. So to me, it's not so bad. But I was talking to someone today who said, I thought we were going to be in the top 4. I'm devastated. And that's kind of where it's at. Like if you did have really high expectations this year, then definitely what's happened last week, but even bits of what's happened in the weeks before would really rock you. But if you're kind of where I'm at and sort of thinking, we're going to be there or thereabouts at the end, but if we miss out in the finals this year, I'm not going to lose the plot about that. Depends on the circumstances, of course, and how far we miss them. But I think next year is going to be the real great leap forward when you get that extra year into Petrarca and Oliver, and hopefully your Tom McDonald's are there and Jack Viney's are there right from the start. So I think it depends where your expectations are this year as to how devastated you are at the moment.
I don't think my expectations were too much different from yours, Supermercado, but the one thing I guess that I haven't seen this year, which I thought I would, we've only played our best footy in very small patches this year. I just thought we would have seen more of it by now. I mean, we got 15, 20 minutes on the weekend. Most of the North game was pretty good, but the other two were patchy. So I just think we've been, a bit underwhelming for the whole year. Yeah, even though we're 2-2.
I think that the way we lost this week and by how much was what was really disappointing. It's not slashing wrist time by any means, but last year early on we had a lot of those small losses. We didn't really get thumped much during the year, and this felt like a thumping and a little bit of a step back. But it's as you said, it's all about how we respond going forward in the next month, and I think in a month's time we'll have a better indication of where we're at. But having said that, last week I said this game will show us where we're at, and if that's the game to show us where we're at, then we're very far behind the 8 ball. But I'm willing to give us another month before I get the microwave and the membership out. But no, I'll never do that. All right, I think with that we might end it there. I was hoping maybe we'd get a few callers in, but it seems that everyone is a little shy or still in shock.
Has the club changed the date of its podcast to clash with ours? Because Inside Melbourne was sort of released this afternoon, wasn't it?
Was it always not released this afternoon?
Was it?
I don't know. I don't know. Are you thinking
could
there's
be
some
black
nefarious...
ops from the club to to bring us down.
I don't think they would. I would hope they're not thinking like that, because certainly they've got a bigger. They've got a much bigger audience, you would think, because they've got a built-in already, built-in audience that reads the website, which is, I would say, is a lot larger than our audience. But I would hope that that's not one of their thinking. We can all live together in. Yeah.
Otherwise, you could have a good old-fashioned WWE style feud with them. Start issuing pot shots.
Well, we've got Djokovic on our side, so I'm quite confident.
Exactly. I mean, you've got my vote.
Yeah, I maybe we need to call in a favour from Jacko, and we'll get an update from him. That would certainly be great.
We can query him on our forward efficiency, perhaps, and how we can start converting some of those inside 50s to goals. Maybe Jacko's got the answer.
Forward coach.
Yeah, bring Jacko back. We need that hashtag on Twitter. Bring Jacko back. All right, guys. Thank you very much once again for joining us, Supermercado. Thank you for giving us an insight into the misery of the demons.
Terrifying life that I lead. Thank you very much for having me, guys, and I hope we can get a few wins up and I can come back and talk about something good for once.
Well, maybe you'll come back next week when we do win, if we do. I'm not quite that confident yet. Great, Viney, thank you very much once again, and thank you to all our loyal listeners. We'll be back next week.
Go D's.
Go those demons.